Hello, everybody. Let me go move and turn that light off. All right. Hello, everyone. Let me adjust this to... Okay. Hello, Tim. Tim says hello from Oklahoma City. And Dan, hello, Dan. Dan has a question for us. Eddie, what do you think of pocket trumpets? Hey, I wonder if that's why I just played that tune. I didn't plan that to play that tune. I don't even know the name of it, but that's a... it was recorded by Don Cherry on pocket trumpet. I've never had a pocket trumpet, so I would not be speaking out of experience. However, I have worked with a bunch of students that have used pocket trumpets. So, some of them are good. I don't know what else to say besides that. I'm not against them. And I know a lot of people buy pocket trumpets so that when they travel, you can just stick it in a bag or something and have it on your carry-on. Now you've got something to play while you're out. Boy, this is bothering me. So yeah, I don't really have a lot to say. I'm not much of an equipment guy, but the stuff I do know about equipment, I know pretty well. But I'm just not, like if you say, what about this trumpet compared to that trumpet? Yeah, I don't know. I don't play on a lot of equipment. But now, if you want to get into more detail about is it good to play on a pocket trumpet, I like to switch it around. Now, here I am saying that I haven't played on a lot of different equipment. But what I do have, I switch around and I try things, and so I do think there's value actually in playing on a pocket trumpet for a while, even though I've never done that. In theory, with your other instruments. Now, I'm not one of those guys that thinks you should touch every horn. My piccolo trumpet stays in the case. There's a couple reasons for that. But the piccolo trumpet, I don't practice a lot. I'm not one of those guys that feels like I have to touch on each one of them, or the instrument's going to be tough to play when I get out there. If your mechanics are right, the only thing that changes from one instrument to the other is how comfortable it is. And maybe that's what those guys are talking about. But that comfort, there's a book I read called Choke, Chock, I think, or no, Choke. And I love books like that, talking about neuroscience and how we should train and how we should not train and all that stuff. And in that book, there's a section on being prepared for adverse events. In other words, obstacles. And what she says in the book is that the way the brain works is that if you're prepared for 3 obstacles, then you're prepared for the rest. Now, me personally, like if we're working with a student on what I call the over-prepare stage, they're getting ready for an audition or important performance. And there's this if they do all 7 stages of my, I call it literature prep, right? Literature preparation. If they do all 7 stages of my literature preparation uh, techniques, one of the last techniques is what I call over prepare. And during that over prepare stage, we start throwing stuff at the student to knock them off their guard, so to speak. So, for example, if it's in the middle of the winter, go to the garage or another room that doesn't have heater on and play in the cold room. Another thing you can do is play the tempo faster. Another thing you can do is play with the TV on real loud. Anything that's going to distract you. Now, I'll have them do more than 3. But 3 is the number that they came up with in the research. If you are prepared for 3 obstacles, 3 diversions, 3 things that get in the way, then you're prepared for all of it. Your mind is ready to adapt if something happens. If you don't prepare for any of them, then you are in trouble because almost every performance, almost every audition is going to give you problems. So why am I talking about that? Talking about the instruments. The reason I don't feel like I have to play every instrument all the time is that same phenomenon. Your body adjusts. If you go back and forth between 3 instruments, then you have what it takes to go back and forth between all the instruments. I hope that makes sense. And that's what's been true in my life, anecdotally true, is that I can pick up somebody else's horn, something entirely different from what I would normally play, like maybe a lead horn. I don't really play on lead horns. The times that I have, it's kind of squirrely, but I adjust and I make the gig work. You can do this also with different mouthpieces. You can play on a wrong mouthpiece on purpose because of the benefit that it gives your mind. It's not a benefit here. It's a benefit according to how your brain works, how your mind works in adapting to something that's new, something that's different. All right, Jose. Jose says hello. Hello, Jose. We're glad you're here. Seppo, hello, Seppo. Karen says, hi Eddie, why do your exercises have so many accidentals? Well, um because a lot of them are not major scales. So I just did today the long tones in the pro routine. So that's a diminished scale. That doesn't fall inside of the parameters of the do re mi stuff. Diminished scale is a symmetric scale, meaning that it's the same interval over and over again. It's whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step. Major scales are not symmetric. Major scales go whole step, half step, whole step, half step, or something like that. And it's not symmetric. It's lopsided. That's why there's so much. So if I have we call it atonal sometimes. What is the actual definition of atonal mean? It means not in a key. So by definition, the chromatic scale is atonal. By definition, the whole tone scale is atonal. By definition, the diminished scale is atonal. If we only played stuff that was tonal, it would cut us off from so many very beautiful sounds. And so even in the exercises, I'm going to grab my routine book. So at this level, it's the long tones that have all of the accidentals. But I have others. Let me see here. Notice that I don't have a lot of that in the double tongue and single tongue and triple tongue and yeah, so I guess it really depends on what the context is. But yes, I don't try to stay tonal on every single exercise or every single piece of music. I do write a lot of tonal music because I do believe that's important. I do believe it's important to express yourself tonally. Even though I've got techniques, I've got sounds in my ears that I hear that want to be expressed. And there's a lot of stuff that I do that is very modern sounding. I have this one technique for composition that I use that's based on the tritone, not the tritone, based on the 12-tone scale. Not 12-tone scale. Well, my vocabulary is all screwed up today. 12-tone serialism. But what I did is I took in 12-tone music, they have, to work on 12-tone music, they have these grids that you do, and you can do inversions, you can do retrograde, and you can do retrograde inversions and all that stuff of the same row. What I did was I wrote a program. I started off in Visual Basic. Then I wrote it because Visual Basic kind of like went away. And so then I rewrote it again in Java. And now what I'm using now is in Java. There's no app because I don't know how to design a user interface in Java, believe it or not. So there's no app, but I run it from NetBeans. I run my code from NetBeans, and then it shoots out a bunch of chord progressions based on that tone row. And I write music based on those chord progressions according to certain rules. See, if I make the 12-tone chord progressions from a certain row, and then follow certain rules during the process of composing with that, then I'm still following all the 12-tone rules. And so why am I telling you about that? Because a lot of my music is based on that. So it's going to be atonal. It's going to have every chromatic note equally represented. And so, yes, you can't do that without a bunch of accidentals. So, and the other thing is that I actually believe that it's important for the students to learn why each accidental is where it is. So, for example, sometimes we have a G to a G flat to an F in the middle of what was normally a diatonic piece. G to G flat to F. It is not G to F sharp to F. Even though you can say, oh, it's the same note. Technically, it's not the same note. The function of that note is different. A lot of people don't write that way anymore. I have a problem that's rooted in my own dyslexia. I do believe I'm dyslexic. I have not been diagnosed, but I'm old enough now to know what the symptoms are, what they the book I read said that it's a inner ear disorder, and I have inner ear problems. Remember, I had um, ear infections when I was young. My mom blamed it on the German water. It's because she was giving me water when I was like 2 years old, 1 year old, from the tap. And her German next door neighbor told her, "Oh, no, 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 you can't do that." But it was too late. I already had a bunch of ear infections. And so, what does that have to do with whether or not it's sharp or flat? For me to sight read, the best sight reading I do is when everything on the paper makes sense. And this is something I found out first for myself, and then later I found out it's actually still true for my students, but only under certain conditions. So if they've not been taking lessons with me, then it's not as true for them because they're still stuck on this thing. Oh, G flat, that's really a F sharp. They're still stuck on that. But when you understand the function of the G flat and the music and your so when does dyslexia affect a trumpet player is when you're sight reading, because sight reading everything has to be automatic. You don't have time to think stuff through. Now, if someone, I played in a band one time with a guy, the leader, his name was Kito Zapata, and he had a mambo band. He had a mambo band. The band only played mambos, and two of the members of the band, when we were in it, two of the members were from the Pres Prado band. So guys that actually went on the road with a mambo band. And there were three of us trumpet players. We were all at the time known for our high notes. And I remember we would take turns playing first. And I remember the last note. No, and let me tell you this about Keto. He was very proud of the fact he would tell everybody, he says, "I can't read music, but I can write it." And you know what? He actually did write pretty good charts, but they weren't always written correctly. So, for example, there was one tune where I'm playing the top part on, and it's a B major 7, and I had the major 7 in my part. On a B major 7 chord, the 7th is the A sharp. So I'm playing A sharp up above the staff, but it wasn't written A sharp, it was written B flat. What happened? I kept cracking that note. Fortunately, he wrote it in pencil, and I changed it to an A sharp, and I stopped cracking the note. B flat and A sharp are not the same thing. A sharp makes sense because that is the 7th of that chord. A B flat is a flatted B. A B flat, if the piece is in B, and you've got a B flat, that's a flatted tonic. Flatted tonic is not the same thing as a 7th. The way it functions in the harmony is not the same. And what it does is it messes up your ear. You're not expecting that sound from a B flat. And that becomes an issue when you're playing first part because those harmonics up there are so close to each other. So yes, for me personally, I need the parts to make theoretical sense. There's times when I've read parts and half of the scale, let's say we're doing a B major scale, and half of the scale is in flats and half of the scale is sharps. That's not right. That's not right. That's going to make me make mistakes. So when I say it's not right, I'm not saying, oh, there's some kind of abstract standard that we got to hold you up to so that you're doing it right. That's not what I mean. Okay? What I mean is that's not practical. When I say it's not right, I mean it's not right in a practical sense. Notes are not just arbitrarily the same. F flat is not E, and E sharp is not F, and C flat is not B, and B sharp is not C. Those notes are distinct. They have a purpose. So when we have, for example, a double sharp, that F double sharp is not G. F double sharp, it's F double sharp for a reason. Okay? Ha 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 ha. Karen says accidents waiting to happen. Well, you know what? I think I put this in the duet book, the new duet book, and then I think I took it out because we had too many pages. I think I took it out, but I think in the new duet book, I think I said, let me see, I got it right here. Did I keep it in there or did I take it out? I took it out. So there was a section that I wrote, and a whole page of it, talking about the accidentals in the book. Because I've got double sharps in the book, I've got C flat in the book, I've got stuff like that in this new duet book. And I was talking about how on this page that I ended up deleting, I was talking about how important it was to learn that stuff. I actually said, in fact, this is the reason why I deleted it. I had to choose some page to delete, and I thought, well, maybe I shouldn't have put that in there in the first place. I basically said that if you have a problem with double sharps and C flats and B sharps and stuff like that, you never finished your education. That's what I said in the book. If you have a trouble with the problems with that stuff, you never finished. You just got to that intermediate level and didn't finish your education, your training. So yes, I thought that was a little bit too controversial, so I took it out. But I believe that. I actually believe that. If all you did in your musical training, and I'm not saying this directly to you, Karen, if this applies to all musicians, if all you did was get to where you could play the scales and now you know all the sharps and flats, but you don't have an understanding of, if you don't have a grasp and a what's the word that they use, um, anyway, if you don't have the technical capability to read music that's got that stuff in it, you never finished your education. You got halfway there and you quit. Now, some of these, when that happens, sometimes it's not the student's fault. There's band directors that are so eager to get high scores at contests that they don't dig deep enough into this stuff. That's the biggest contest, and I believe this wholeheartedly. Contest is the reason why students don't learn this stuff. Contest is the reason why people only get half educated, because the contest, winning that contest has become such a big deal that there's no time to get deeper into the music like that. But I'm not going to get on that subject. Gabriel is here. Hello, Eddie and friends, he says. Well, hello. Happy you're here. Seppo has some questions. Seppo says, sometimes there are situations in keys, for example, with many sharps, that it will be more correct to use double sharps. That's what I'm saying. Sometimes they just are so confusing that I just respell them to the incorrect way for my students and myself also. Do you think that this is a good or bad idea? My stance on that is contextual. There's music that we do for our education, and then there's music we do in public. When we're working on something that's for public performance or something that's urgent, like an audition or something, you mark what has to be marked. That will make it easier for the student. But that should always be a last resort. But I have sort of a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde mentality towards this sort of thing. I believe that when we're performing, we should be careful and do all the stuff that makes it easier to do it. But when we're in education mode, I have rules for my students. We never mark anything that's already on the music. We never mark anything that's not already on the music. So, if it's a G sharp, and when I say never, I'm talking about on the educational side. For those who still need it on the performance side, yes, go ahead and do it as a last resort. On the educational side, on the music that we do to make the students better players, never change something like that. Because then you have these players that end up they're adults now and they still can't read music. And that's what I'm saying. If the accidentals have to be changed, then you're not finished learning how to read music yet. I know that's hard to hear because there's so many people out there that really can't. On that page, I told you there was a whole page talking about this, and I mentioned a story that happened to me on Facebook. When I write charts for bands, I don't put my name on because I understand that that's not entirely legal. So I don't put my name on there. I have never heard of anyone getting in trouble or being sued for it, but I understand that it's illegal for me to make money writing somebody else's music. So if I write, for example, in this case, it was a song, a big band chart for a big band leader that I work with. And then there was a gig that I didn't play later. And one of the sax players posted a image of one of the pages and was very tongue-in-cheek, condescending, but in a funny way, talking about, he was saying like, ladies and gentlemen, our first double sharp of the season. And what happened was the people who commented on that all said them. Everyone who commented said how stupid that was. The piece was in E, 4 sharps, and the figure was something like this. Right? G sharp, F double sharp, G sharp, F double sharp, G sharp, F double sharp. The proper way to write that is what I just said, G sharp to F double sharp. They're complaining. They're saying, oh, who would ever write that? It's just a G. And it was, I'm talking dozens of comments complaining about that F double sharp. Not one person got in there to say, hey, you guys are so stupid. you, you can't read double sharps. What's wrong with you? Nobody said that. And I got on there and I said, so the guy tagged the leader that hired me to write that chart, and the leader said, talk to Eddie Lewis and tagged me. He's the one that wrote the chart. And I got on there. I told him this is how that's the proper way to write that. I told him that. And it kind of shut down the conversation, but nobody said, oh, I see how you see it. No, it wasn't like that. They're still complaining about that F double sharp. So, yeah, I put that story in the new duet book, because I just don't think that people that are afraid of double sharps they haven't finished their education. The other thing is, when you do the tonalization studies, the keys become more second nature. So why would you have double sharps? Seppo is correct. The double sharps happen mostly when there's a lot of sharps. The double flats happen mostly when there's a lot of flats. And I think part of the problem, why people struggle with that, is they're already struggling. They're already struggling with the many sharps. They're already struggling with the many flats. They're not used to playing in those keys. That's one of the reasons why we do the tonalization studies the way we do them, is to take that, what do you call it? That, how people have, I have my hard keys and my easy keys. That goes away. You do the tonalization studies in every key, that goes away. But I can understand why somebody who hasn't done my system and they have hard keys and easy keys, if you haven't been doing the tonalization studies and certain keys give you problems, I can understand, by adding a double sharp in the mix, by adding a double flat into the mix, you just messed everything up. I can understand that. And I guess what it comes down to, in my music, who am I selling to and why? Who do I write for and why am I writing for them? I cannot, because I am mostly a teacher, I cannot justify writing stuff that is just quote unquote easier and yet incorrect. Because then I'm causing that to continue. I'm condoning it and encouraging that behavior to continue. I cannot write like that. That's why I really hope. By the way, Seppo, I haven't sent you an email. I appreciate your order. I appreciate that. I'm very excited that you were able to get that music. So anyway, and the reason I was thinking about that is because you ordered some of the easier pieces, and I try to, in the easier pieces, I try to keep to these rules so that when the students see this stuff later, it's not so much of a problem anymore. They just get used to it because they're working in those keys and they're playing those kinds of accidentals. Anyway, that was a good topic, Karen. You always have good questions. Any other questions today? So, Seppo asks, do you think the circle of fifths in a graphical way when playing changes? No. And you know why? When I'm improvising, I made a decision in the mid 80s, in the mid 80s. It might have been earlier than that. It might have been early 80s. Uh, that from that point forward, anything that I'm working on for jazz was only going to be referenced visually, but practiced orally. So the only reason I have it in the notebook is so that I keep track of everything. I never look at it while I'm playing. So what has jazz become to me? Jazz, there's very little visual stuff in my head when I'm improvising. Very, very little visual stuff. Jazz, when I'm improvising, has become a lot of ear, a lot of heart and emotion, and a lot of, I would say, equal parts of those three: ear, heart and emotion, and what do we call it? Muscle memory. I think that both sight reading and playing by ear and improvisation is a holistic thing. It's a holistic thing. You hear the note, and everything in your body, every mechanism in your body goes where it has to go because of the training that you put into it. That's what I mean by holistic. It's no longer thinking my way through it. It's no longer me saying this chord, this chord, this chord, that chord. When I'm improvising, a lot of body, body, what do you call it? I keep muscle memory, a lot of muscle memory, a lot of feel, tactile feel. How it feels, what kind of tension I have in my arm, what kind of tension I have in the abdomen, how tight are my lips, how high is my tongue, all the whole package. And I attribute this way of playing to having broken away from the music in the 80s. I attribute this holistic type of playing to breaking away from the written music. So no, I don't see anything graphical like that when I'm playing anymore. What I do see sometimes, and this is going to sound very much like someone other than me because I'm not this way, but sometimes I'll see uh, images of people. Sometimes I'll see um, landscapes. So when I'm improvising, that's more of the kind of visual that I will see. But a lot of times, what it is me just being in the moment. Just being in that moment. And so instead of seeing, and this is available to me because it is a holistic thing now. Instead of seeing anything different in my head, what I'm seeing is the other guys. What I'm seeing is people in the audience. What I'm hearing is greatly influenced by what the other guys are playing. So no, the way I teach and the way I play for the improv, it's always striving for that holistic, um, entire body approach to the improv. I feel the same way now. I feel the same way now about reading music and playing stuff that you've already played. Cardo says, hello, Eddie and friends. Well, hello. Nice to see you again. Gabriel says, Eddie, shall I practice the melodic etudes like Conconi with the metronome? Are they intended to be played exactly as they are written? What do I do with the tempo if I find rallentando? My answer to that is no, don't do the lyrical stuff with the metronome. And for me personally, I like to slow down, speed up, and stuff like that. You know, there's people out there that say, oh, that's not the right way to do it. And when it comes to music and stuff like that, the only right way is the way of the guy who's paying you, or the guy standing in front with the stick, or the guy who's sitting first chair next to you. That's the only right way there is, ever. That's the only right way. Anybody else that tries to inflict, that's the only word that could come in my mind right now, tries to hold you up to a standard like that, saying that this is the proper way to do it. I'm talking about musical interpretation, right? Anybody that does that is the only reason people do that is so that they can maintain their stature in the hierarchy. See, there are musical hierarchies. There are musical, what do you want to call it? And it's all fake. It is all fake. The people who want to be the authority on this and the authority on that, there is no such thing in music. Music is subjective. The only authority is the guy who's going to pay you. And if the guy who pays you says, I want the notes short, or I want it to be with the metronome, or I want it to be this way or that way, that guy is going to get what he wants because he's the one with the money. And same thing with the guy, if you're playing in a community band, the guy wagging the stick, he gets to say, hey, we don't want you in our band anymore. And same thing with the guy who sits first chair. Our job as second trumpet player, as third trumpet player, as fourth trumpet player, our job is to play it the way that the first trumpet player plays it. So his way is the right way, and it doesn't matter who he is or how bad you think he is or anything like that. His way is the right way. If you have a problem with that, with any of these guys, it should not be handled on stage. And I'm not the type to do this, and I groan when I see it. If you need to talk to somebody about something like that, do it off stage. Do it somewhere after the rehearsal, before the rehearsal, in an email. But I warn you, you're treading on dangerous territory. If you feel like you need to tell the guy who's wagging the stick that he's doing it wrong, then you're on dangerous territory. And I would have to question, why would you even do that? Anyway, so I know that's a tangent. But no, for me, what I do with the lyrical stuff is I do not use the metronome because I like to be free-flowing on that stuff. I know you guys have heard me emphasize that we should practice with the metronome a lot, but that does not apply to lyrical studies. That's another good question. Cardo says, Eddie, what is the best way to develop endurance? First of all, the number one best way to get endurance is to get a centered sound And I shouldn't have said that. I don't like that term. Play to the center of the pitch. A centered sound is the result of a centered pitch. Play to the center. The more you play to the center, the less problems you will have with endurance issues. I'm not saying that's the end all. I'm not saying do that and now you won't have problems. I'm saying if you don't do that, your problems are worse. So make sure that you play to the center of the pitch. Now, how do you do that? That is kind of a abstract thing. I don't think people agree where that center is. I really don't believe. So one guy will say this is the center, others will say that's the center. There's no practical way for us to measure that. When you look at the technical part of it. So basically center, how do we find the center for ourselves? You do a lot of lip bends and you do a lot of pedal tones. Doing lip bends, part of the purpose of doing lip bends is to help you find center. It's just like the violinists that they go flat first and then they tune it. They never go straight from where they are to a lower pitch. You only tune up on a violin. You only ever tune up. If they need to go back down, they loosen it all the way and then pull it back up to pitch. It's the same thing for us with lip bends. We bring the pitch down, and the way I like to say this, you bring the pitch down, and when you come back up, you let the pitch rise to its natural resonance, natural pitch, right? So when I'm doing a lip bend, I don't force it back to pitch. You know, doing lip bends is very beneficial. Doing lip bends is very beneficial, but there are ways you can think that will not be as beneficial. And if the way you're doing the lip bend is to manhandle it down and then manhandle it back up, you're not getting 100% of the benefit. Pull the pitch down, let it float back up. That's how you find the center. So yes, that's the first thing. The second thing I would say is that you should be doing a physical trumpet pyramid type routine. The next thing I would say is make sure that you are resting enough. There's the 3 levels of rest. We've talked about it a lot in this Q&A. I think I would say that with my students, most of the students I've worked with that have had trouble with endurance were not resting at all 3 levels. That's the most common problem, is that they are not incorporating rest into their practice. The last thing is for endurance is to be as musical as possible. And I'm not going to go into the details about why that works, but you want to have style and you want to be expressive. When you use style, so for example, if the students are playing bam, 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 right? There's no style in that. There's no note shape. There's no phrasing. There's no nothing. If they're playing like that, they will have problems with endurance. if instead we play more musically. Right? If we add style, if we add expression and phrasing, you take a lot of the problems that happen with the endurance, you take it out of the picture. So with an issue like endurance, it's all of these things together that come together. So we talked about the having more of a centered pitch. We've talked about all of that stuff. All of it is necessary to have better endurance. All of it. All right. Hello, Kevin. Kevin says, does centered sound mean play to the center of the horn or play to the center of the tuner? It means to the center of the horn, not to the center of the tuner. Let me tell you this. I don't have my degree, and it's because I asked that question. That's the question that kept me from graduating. My teacher was so pissed that I asked that question that he kicked me out of the studio and said, never come back. And it all started, the argument started with that question. He said, how dare you question me? How dare you question me? He's the teacher, I'm the student, and he says, how dare you question me? And I was serious. I mean, I was sincere. I didn't understand because he told a story. He told a story about playing to the center of the pitch when he was in a symphony. And he said, once he played to the center of the pitch, the whole thing was in tune. I said, how's that? How is that possible? And it's not possible. Not without changing your slides or something. And yes, we do change our slide. If you want to play to the center of the pitch and play in tune, you have to move your slides and you have to use alternate fingerings and stuff like that. So no, the center of the pitch is not with the tuner. That's what makes this so complicated. You cannot just use the tuner and say, oh, I'm in tune. It doesn't work like that. The way you find the center of the pitch is with the lip bends. You pull it down, let it come back up again. Gabriel says, I'm the director, I'm the first chair, I'm the audience, so I can do what I like as I play for myself. And it's my wonderful hobby. That's why I asked, and thanks for the suggestions. So yes, I'm right there with you. I love that. That's a wonderful answer. The best resource I had for endurance is the rests. Also, when playing the micro rests, and that is thanks to Eddie that showed it in the one range book. Right. That's one of the things we talk about in the one range book. And I'm happy to hear every time I hear something like that from you and everyone else that says, "Oh, this is what I learned and it works." You know, I'm going to tell you guys until a question comes up. The hardest part of what I do, the hardest part is not using all the sales tricks that they use to make people buy stuff. I don't use sales tricks to sell my lessons. I don't use sales tricks to sell my books. I don't use sales tricks to sell my compositions. I refuse to do most of that stuff. I refuse to do most of that. It's I'm not going to say it's evil, but it's not Christian. And I try to live my life according to my Christian values. And so, but in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, there's stuff that I have here that I know helps people. And I actually believe that the reason why we sell so many books, so many compositions, and why so many people sign up for lessons is because of the fact that it works. And that's the kind of obvious, right? You almost don't have to use those sales tricks if the stuff actually does what it's supposed to do. And I'm honored, really. I'm honored every time I hear these stories, and I get more and more of these stories every day. I hear from people that said, you know what, your books, your pieces, your lessons made a difference. That's the best sales you can get in this world without crossing over to the dark side. I think about you guys all the time when I'm on YouTube and that really irritating trumpet commercial comes up, this guy who's trying to sell his online courses. And I think about you guys when I see that, not for the reasons that you might think. I think about the fact that you guys have benefited from what I teach and benefited from the books and benefited from the compositions. You have benefited, and I never had to do that. I never had to. This guy, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but this guy will have his trumpet and a rubber ducky. And it's all to get your attention, right? He wants to get your attention so that he can sell you his online course. And I think about you guys because you guys didn't need that. You didn't need me to pull some kind of sales gimmick on you to make you go out and put the money into the stuff that I sell. And I'm very happy about that. Very, very happy. This is the way it should work. Cardo says, Eddie, every time I play new mouthpiece, the tuning of each individual note changes. Then after a few days, it comes back to normal. Is that something that happens to everybody? It happens to me. And sometimes it doesn't come back to normal. I have that Warburton kit. I even ordered some new parts because I want to have the extremes on the shanks, and they didn't give me the extremes on the shanks. So I have a mouthpiece that I'm not very happy with that I would like to find a bottom for that works. This is a Warburton, a very deep Warburton. And I'm still not happy with the sound. But what I figured out in trying all the different shanks with the tuner is that the some of the just one combination different, and you can have notes that are all over the place. So okay, today it sounds a little bit better. The last time I played it was in a student's lesson, and I just didn't like what it sounded like. Yeah, it sounds better today. I don't know what the difference is. But I'm excited. I just got the notice right before we started. I checked my email, and those other bottom parts, the shanks, are on the way. So I get to try those out when they get here. because I really think I'm at the far end of what I've got on this shank, and it's still not quite right. So I'm looking forward to. But yes, this is a thing. There's some very interesting things that happen when you mess around with mouthpieces. There can be, I Seppo asked what horn that was. That's a pudgy, Puje, and it's that mod. He calls it a pudgy mod, MOD. So so yes, I remember one time ordering mouthpieces from I won't say who it was because I don't deal with them anymore. And I sent my credit card. They sent me, I think 20 mouthpieces, something like that. And I made myself not look at the sizes, and I marked them with index cards. I put each one on an index card, and every time I tried it, I wrote notes down on each index card. I'm not exaggerating. One of those mouthpieces played as if it had a like a BB inside of it or something, like the air wouldn't come out at all. I'm not exaggerating. It played as if it was stuck up, like there was no hole through the center. And I pulled it off. I'm looking inside to see if there's something like gunk or something in there. Nothing. It's clean. But just the combination of values, and it wouldn't go. I couldn't play it. The most bizarre thing I ever had on a mouthpiece. So there are some weird things that can happen. I do know that even the throat, there's things that can happen with the pitch if you change the throat. You can have, I think what it does is and I don't remember which direction is which, but you can expand the octaves or shrink the octaves depending on the throat. So in other words, all your high notes could be too flat or all your high notes could be too sharp, just because of the throat. That's why I don't mess with throats like I used to, because you can really do a lot of really mess it up that way. So anyway, very good. We are finished today. I hope you guys have a great week. Let me see. I think we have next week. The gigs are starting to come back in again, but we'll see. All right. God bless you guys. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks for hanging out. Have a great weekend.